Now, don't you love just the way Kenya's economy has a very resilient, of course, structure, that amidst all this corruption, we can still lumber on and survive, right? Every day we wake up to talks and splashes about corruption. Looking at the Daily Nation is all about big fish being trapped. Looking at the Standard is all about NYS. Look there. Sugar wars spark tensions in Jubilee. Sugar politics. These are the sort of splash that we normally wake up to every day. Big fish trapped. Let's see what also the People Daily is holding for you as well. This is a common Kenyan story every day. 600 million shillings theft. KPC bosses face arrest. They face arrest. Anti-corruption czar tells the House Energy team several fines already forwarded to the DPP, with arrest and prosecution expected soon. But what is really captivating is the fact that people can go full steam ahead and also give Kenyans sugar that is laced with mercury and copper as well. Of course, that is a national threat, a security threat as well. And we turn our focus this morning on matter security. We just want to hear from our panelists what is their view as far as this is concerned and as far as the public health is concerned as well. Allow me to introduce to you this morning Lucy Mukuria. She is a military psychologist, Major retired Lucy Mukuria. Also, we do have with us Professor Noah Midamba. Noah Midamba is the Vice Chancellor of KC University and also an expert on defense and foreign policy. We have Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who is the former Deputy Chair of the African Union. Also, we do have with us Dr. Hassan Khannenje. Hassan Khannenje is the Director of the Horn Institute. We do have with us as well Tom Kagwe, who is a political scientist. Good morning, gentlemen and lady.
Morning.
Morning.
Right, let's just begin with Lucy, first of all, because yes, you're involved also maybe in the kitchen, you use a lot of sugar. As a mother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Debarl.
Yeah.
We have a long way to go.
You know?
But you have an upper hand.
No,
Yeah?
actually, I actually don't even consume sugar, so.
You don't consume sugar at all?
Yeah.
Unlike me.
Yeah, maybe.
So reasons for not consuming sugar?
Just a personal choice, actually.
A personal choice.
It's a personal choice. And talking about sugar, I think it's something that is in every household. So when reports come out that allegations that there might be some poison in the sugar, it causes a lot of panic. I think that issue has also hurt a lot of people, because I think people are feeling like, are we even safe? You mean even our sugar? And probably it speaks true to the notion that everything that happens out there and we feel we are separate from it eventually comes to our doorstep. And even as we talk about this issue of sugar, I remember my daughter asking me, but, she's like, why would anybody want to do this? Why would anybody deliberately put poison in something people will consume? So she was questioning. She's like, how? My housekeeper said, it's not true. There's no way they've put poison in the sugar. And I had a friend of mine who was around, and she was freaking out. She was like, are we not safe? Is there anything that is not sacrosanct to these people? Is the value for our lives like so minimal that we don't matter anymore? And I found myself thinking about how different people are having different reactions to this situation. And I guess talking about security and defense, I wondered, how do you make people feel safe when they have been given a reason to, feel as though they are panicked? Because if it is the sugar, then, there's so much going on right now. It's almost a question of, where are we going to hear there's a scandal next? Where are we next going to hear that somebody has compromised not just our health, but our longevity, not just for us as a people, but also affecting the future generations? And we just come back to what we've been talking about. We have to start using love logic. We have to start responding in a way that does not add more potency to this pot that is clearly a poisoned chalice. And it's good that everybody who has concerns be responded to. I mean, that's my household. Right. We are just 3 people, but you can see the different reactions that were there. Now multiply that by the millions of Kenyans who are out there. What response do you give them? Is anybody listening? Will they get an appropriate response? I think it's not a question of whether or not the sugar is poisoned, but why are we even having that discussion in the first place?
Thank you. Right, and in light of what we normally have, and there's the different tactics of terrorists as well. We normally talk about bioterrorism, and given an avenue like this, that we have also speculations that some of these contrabands are coming from Somalia as well. People might take advantage, you know, to try and also adversely affect the public when it comes to bioterrorism. How sure are we that, yes, our security is tight, right from the ports, from our borders as well, if we can have such, you know, infiltrating the market? We can hear from you, Ambassador Erastus Mwencha.
Debarl, you're absolutely correct. The situation of sugar in the country, and we have seen in the past, maize that has come in contaminated. We don't know what other products you have seen. Milk products for children, all contaminated. But all this, it boils down to what we've been discussing about the corruption. Because food that is imported normally, you would have to check it at the border and ensure that it is fit for human consumption. So once you are in this kind of situation of corruption, it gets in. The question of sugar in Kenya is very sad, because you see Kenya does not produce enough sugar for domestic consumption. The shortfall, from what I remember when I was in Comesa, is about 200,000 tons, and it has remained that way in spite of growth in production. There is also growth in consumption. And so there was this gap that the government was allowed, whether under Comesa regime or regional trade regime, to import. And the whole idea, in fact, when that exercise started, was enable the sugar industries to import this, so that, because Kenya, in addition to that import shortfall,
yes,
there was also a price issue, that Kenya is not an efficient producer of sugar. Kenya is high-cost sugar because of small-scale nature, and also the technology that is used, and rain-fed and the rest. So then Kenya was to use this money to develop the sugar industry. But what's happened? It is in the pockets of politicians and traders and smugglers. And because of that, they made a huge business. And the Minister of Agriculture knows this. Sugar Authority knows this. And somebody is looking at the other side. When you are importing harmful sugar, affecting industries, affecting farmers who grow sugarcane, I mean, this is economic sabotage. And then instead of now fighting this issue, you can see these parents are now fighting back. It is witch hunt and all sorts of things. It is a very sad thing for the country to wake up to this news. I've seen now people on the table declining to put sugar in their tea or whatever.
Yes.
They want to use honey. We hope that will be safe. And that is killing an industry. In any case, to me, there is a country in Nordic recently which banned importation of sugar to the country because they said, in any case, it's not good for human health. Maybe we should start preaching that we do away with this sugar industry.
Right, maybe even I should be serving you in Duvia in the morning, yeah? Yeah, no, since we don't know the source of this sugar as well, I cannot really, you know, be ascertain also the safety of your health, you taking sugar, right? And Duvia in the morning, so you'll forgive me on this. But interesting that you mentioned also milk, because we've had also cases that people are trying to preserve the milk with formalin.
Yes.
And formalin is actually a substance being used to preserve bodies in the mortuary as well. This is the extent that actually you know, some of people in this country will go to make sure that actually they pilfer from the public coffers, regardless of your health. They don't really care that you can take milk. People are taking breakfast, but it's laced with formalin. I don't know what is your take, Professor Noah Midamba.
Debarl, I agree with my colleagues here, and members of parliament are clearly emotional. For good reason. This is mass killing. This is an attempt to kill and hurt a lot of people in the country. And you know, in these days of age where there's science of examining anything that enters the country, particularly food, is so high, how in the world will a contaminated sugar allowed to enter the country? You know, and so we need to improve our border control because there is something we just mentioned. The enemy is watching it. And if one bag can pass the enemies, we'll multiply that by many. And then we have a mess in our country. So that border control need to be taken care of. Two, these people who are running around trying to make quick money need to bear the serious consequences of doing this kind of thing. And thirdly, we have the potential in Western, we have the potential in Nyanza, we have a potential in Coast to produce enough sugar for domestic consumption. So we need to increase our ability to be able to do that without all these kind of things happen, and we need to focus on doing it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Dr. Hassan Khannenje, good morning.
Good morning, Debarl. Now, the irony of those who import fake sugar, which is actually a symptom of the larger problem of counterfeit, is that none of us is immune to the effects of counterfeits. They're themselves, including their families and their friends, they're still going to consume that sugar, directly or indirectly. And so, if it's laced with mercury and other heavy metals, they're still actually going to become victims. Now, when it comes to the whole problem of sugar, it is true that part of what informed the policy to import sugar from external sources was to make up for the shortfall. But then there was no policy to try and fix what was wrong internally. As the professor just mentioned, then the regions in this country, Western and Coast, they have potential to actually produce sugar for the entire East Africa.
Yes.
But we've not had a policy to try and, first of all, fix what the problem is in the sugar industry, try to improve the technology in producing sugar so that it's cheaper, and in so doing, we've affected our own citizens, those especially who rely on sugar. Look at what's happening in Mumias and other parts of the country. Sugar is no longer profitable to a lot of farmers. Not to mention, most of them have to wait for 2 years before they actually get paid. And we're literally impoverishing these communities by allowing these criminals to run free. Now, as a government, the responsibility lies, at the door of government also. It is important that actions are taken and they're seen to be taken, and actually people who are involved in the industry serve some time in jail, if not to be there permanently. In part, you've seen increasingly lately, and because also of the counterfeits, whether it's milk or other products, there's increased incidence of cancer in this country. No one is doing research to actually find out what the cause is. I don't think it's domestic. I don't think it's coming from the earth of Kenya. I think it's coming from the products we're importing that are counterfeit. And some of it could be food source, but others could be material, including construction materials, that could actually be having some elements or some chemicals that can affect people in a cancerous way.
Right, thank you. Let's hear from Tom Kagwe.
You see, I think the first thing we need to agree on is national security, according to the Constitution, means the protection against any internal or external threats to Kenya's territorial integrity, sovereignty, the people themselves, the rights and their freedoms, and property, peace, stability and prosperity within the context of standing on guard. That is something that would be my first comment to make, that any person who dares threaten our freedoms and our rights in this context of economic saboteurs, because this is not corruption, this is theft. I don't know why we keep calling corruption theft, corruption. It's theft of public resources. When I flip through the Daily Nation today, I'm seeing a lot of theft in sugar, energy, land. There is National Land Commission problems. There is an issue of patients in Kenyatta National Hospital, who don't have a drug. 88 are clinging to their life today. When you look at maize, Kenya Pipeline, illegal settlement in forests, destruction of forests in the former Coast Province region, and you look at all these scandals, page to page, there is something which we need to agree on. We must attack economic saboteurs from the sea, from the air, and from the land. And there is no way of saying that some people are sacred, some are not. This is not a talk we need to have. We need to agree first, these people are violating our national security. If we agree on they are violating our national security, then action needs to be taken. But coming from where I was for 6 years, I think the problem is policing. Why do I lay blame to policing? Because policing is the act of ensuring that the functions of the National Police Service are done and done correctly. So if police allow businessmen or businesswomen carrying sugar, moving around in the intelligence of the police need to have nabbed this thing a long time ago. When you have issues of land, people are settling in forests illegally. People are destroying forests. Therefore, that's why for me it's very paramount that the Ministry of National Security or Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government takes this thing in a holistic manner. There is no need of this Ministry of Land doing something, even education, people are selling even land that belongs to schools. We need to take this as a matter of national security. We deal with it squarely through the 3 arms that are created under Article 239, that is the National Police Service, the Kenya Defence Forces, and the National Intelligence Service. This must be dealt with within the context of national security. That's the only way we can deal with this matter. Not MPs shouting. In fact, some of them are the beneficiaries of this corruption. So let's not hide up behind names and some MPs calling others more thieves. Everybody in that house has a connection of something. Very few MPs are not in this business. Very few of them. Yeah.
All right. In the light of the tactics of a terrorist, we know now the way it is a low-tech, high-impact sort of tactics that they normally use, and the bioterrorism that we're talking about. Maybe we can highlight on that briefly. We'll begin with you, Lucy. But bioterrorism, maybe giving an iota of idea to a terrorist that this is a way maybe I can attack if I don't have the grenades and if I don't have other ways of actually making sure that wananchi suffer. You've seen what is happening in Syria as well. That could be another avenue.
I mean, yes, it could be. And I want to be very careful when responding to that, because I don't want to sort of confirm that that is what is happening here. My first question would be, have we been given the chemistry of the treatment of the what do you call it?
The contraband.
No. Have we been given the analysis of the sugar that was tested by the government chemist? That would be my first question. Because remember, the thing that has set all of us in this whole discussion is because of the announcement that was made by the Cabinet Secretary for Interior Security. But for me, I would want to see what is the analysis, what does it say, and stuff like that. And before we even decide it is, somebody who has sat somewhere and decided this is the way I'm going to maliza Kenyans, well, because you might send Kenyans on a frenzy as well, if that is the conversation. I am more inclined to the idea that there are some people with the privilege of money, with the privilege of power, who do not think that the rest of the Kenyans deserve to live a full life, or the value they hold for the other Kenyans is very low, and therefore they see them as means to an end to enriching themselves. That would be the first place that I would go to explain this issue, because we know that is what is common. As if there was the issue of considering bioterrorism, I would need more evidence, I would need more proof. But as of now, I believe it is a person who just feels that their ability to enrich themselves supersedes the value of Kenyan lives. Right. That's what I would say.
Okay, let's say from Dr. Khannenje briefly.
I think the porous nature of our borders and our port, actually, that allows, it's so permissive when it comes to things including counterfeit. It gives terrorists an idea of what they can potentially do. If they want to harm, let's say, a certain region or certain part of the country, they can easily, and there are certain basic chemical and biological agents that are not too sophisticated to manufacture in the laboratory. And someone might actually entertain the potential idea that, well, if I can do this and then send it to this part of the world, this part of the country that I want to affect, to have maximum effect, people will be falling over like flies, you know, in a matter of days. And that is potentially, it can be potentially catastrophic. And the truth is, terrorists nowadays, increasingly, they rely on, or they exploit vulnerabilities of countries. Now, that is an area where we're vulnerable. And we have to be concerned, not just about the potential for biological weapons, but including the potential for real hard weapons. Because if you're smuggling fake sugar and someone is, you know, keeping a blind eye on it, that very person can still keep a blind eye on a missile, on TNT, and stuff like that. So it's not just the threat from biological weapons, it's actually the threat from other very conventional weapons.
All right. Ambassador Erastus Mwencha.
Well, I think that the three have spoken. But I wanted to add something to this idea of, you know, what Kagwe said about national security. Because national security is not simply, you know, people coming with guns. It has got many elements, as he read it out from the Constitution. And once we allow laxity in very critical areas like human health, that is a threat to national security. And so I think we should be concerned about this. And I think as we discuss this matter, we should be asking ourselves, what next? We can see this laxity, as it has been pointed out, somebody can exploit it and cause really huge harm. What we need is now to support the war that the president has started. Because this monster is capable of fighting back. And you can see they are already fighting back. They are fighting back to say, okay, let's go back to 1963, let's do whatever it is. And for us to win this war, all hands must be on deck. And that means the public must be sensitized. We must mobilize parliament and kill the voices that are out to fight back. Otherwise, we will be dragged down and will become, you know, look at it. We are 143 out of 180 countries. That's not of corruption index. That's not a figure to, and once you have that kind of state, you are so vulnerable. Because then it means anything can happen. And so that is a threat to national security. Okay. That is what we should go for.
Right. Maybe the question also we should explore, and I think Noah Midamba, we've discussed this extensively here, where we talk about porous borders. We have right now a wall that is being built, you know, alongside the Kenya and Somali border, stretching extensively, I think over 2,000 kilometers. But still, we can remember also the Great Wall of China. Wait, is it 2,000 kilometers? I think that is of China. I don't know this one is how many kilometers. Maybe you'll tell me. But they stretched that particular wall, but still China were invaded because of a single, you know, guard. There was guarding that particular gate that was corrupted. That actually we can build also a wall here, Somali and Kenyan border still, and corruption will still thrive. People will still infiltrate Kenya and come with illegal arms and come with, you know, all sort of contrabands in the country as well. So are we just batting our heads on the wall as far as this is concerned? Because the issue is not just the walls and the issue is not just the gadgets that we have. The issue is in our minds.
Debarl, any wall or any barrier is built by a human being. And that same human being will figure out the way to destroy it. So the most important thing, Debarl, is number one, you're fighting an enemy, you must think like an enemy. You must be 100 miles ahead of the enemy. It is very, very difficult, Debarl, to penetrate the Israelis' border. Why? There is a wall and there are gadgets. There is balloon that is flying on top of the Gaza Strip that watches every chicken and everything that is on the ground.
A balloon?
Balloon. It's called balloon. Okay. And it goes up 24 hours. It is expensive at the beginning, but it's cheaper because it's sustainable. Now, there are all kind of gadget combination that we can apply over that border to make sure that nobody crosses unless they have good reason to cross. And two, there has to be a quick and complete rotation of those people that we put on those borders. A lot of them are corrupted people. That's how all this contraband and everything else is entering the country. And they ought to be punished. These same people are applying the same formula like the enemy. And they are destroying the country. They're not doing anybody any service.
Right. Okay, maybe I need to draw your attention also on what Victor has drawn for us today, this morning. This is in the Star. Do you think in any way this is also a diversionary tactic? You know, according to him, that yes, now people are concentrating on the, you know, sugar imports right now. We're forgetting about the higher voltage of NYS, Kenya Pipeline Company, and also NCPB, the Kenya Power scams as well. So do you think in any way this is a diversionary tactic?
I mean, I don't think so. I think it's a lovely cartoon and everything, but if anybody is to really be honest with themselves in this country, like for probably the last 2 to 3 years, every other week there is almost a sustained bad news. Every week, every month, every day, you know, there's something. You know, for me, I say we are addicted to chaos, and we've normalized that chaos and accepted it as our way of life, you know. So there is nothing like a distraction. For me, really, what I find myself questioning is, how can our predictability be our unpredictability? And this is the disease right there, you know. People feel it is the government's job to, you know, be there to offer security to everybody, and people feel that they should be able to get away with what they want to get away with because some people are getting away with it.
Yes.
I feel like we don't have a shared essence, a community essence.
Yes.
And for me, I feel that this is an opportunity to think about what is our shared essence. What do we all agree on? That is what will keep us safe. Because I keep saying, our own security and safety is not because it will be provided by a policeman or a soldier. It is because you will provide it for me, you will provide it for me, because we agree that there are certain elements that we shall not allow to come and distract us. And that means that if you do something that is corrupt, then I get to suffer for it. If I do something that is corrupt, you get to suffer for it. You know, what is our shared essence? This is what I am questioning. And this is the opportunity I see that is presented by all this chaos. Because the only thing that it's doing, it's making us feel as though, you know, everything is going out of control.
Just to add, what is our shared essence?
Yes.
In 2013 October, myself and Professor Midamba went to some college to speak on national values. When we drafted those national values, I was part of them. And when we promulgated those national values on 27th October, or 27th August 2010, we agreed as a country that those values should guide everything that we do. Whether you are a state officer,
right,
you are a citizen, you are a private sector fellow, there are national values that we agreed on. And Professor Midamba sat in a committee and a task force that worked on how to ensure that those values are rolled out.
Yes.
From the nursery school to tertiary education to the villages. We agreed as a country. What we have, for me, those values guide everybody's decision-making process. They have guided me for 6 years where I was. I don't understand why people do not want to agree that this constitution, we promulgate it for ourselves. If this constitution is not ours, then we better throw it away. Because for me, everything that starts and ends, I have to seek guidance. The second thing which is really interesting about this country is that on Sunday, I see a lot of people trooping to church. On Friday, people troop to mosques. On Saturday, people troop to SDA churches. And Hindus go to their temples. Those who are Jews go to the synagogue.
Yeah.
Here, I see people going to You know what shocks me about everything is that the first words which we put here were about God. I'm not a preacher man, but if people were to be guided by God, not even the Constitution, they would not be involved in such scams. Because essentially, for me, that's not a diversion. I've said the Daily Nation, page to page, for the first 20 pages of this paper, cartoons, everything is about people are stealing left, right, and center. Imagine a situation whereby your life is dependent on a drug, and the ministry cannot provide such a drug in Kenyatta National Hospital, and you are dying of cancer. I have lost several people very close to me to cancer. So when a drug is not availed, it means something. I don't know. I don't understand this country sometimes.
Right.
And this is one of those moments.
So if we have our leaders who are on the forefront, who are actually showcasing this, and we have our youth, we have reports that yes, they know no other way of actually earning, you know, a good tidy sum of money in this country other than being corrupt. That's the way to go. How do we also blame ourselves when we have certain caricatures like what we do have today, and headlines like we had yesterday on the Star, if we just pick up that particular caricature, just full blown so that we can see it clearly. Yeah, and we see this is Arab Singh walking away with oodles of cash oozing out from, you know, the briefcase there. Careful with some of that loose talk. I've invested a lot in you. And this is Lucifer personified here. Of course, reading one of the dailies there, which is saying, I'm investing in heaven. Well, that is according to Gado. That is Arab Singh. If we have leaders, and you're mentioning churches, when we go to churches, and of course we're giving out all these monies through Harambes as well. Even a very sacrilegious place like, you know, the altar has become so tainted nowadays that we also let politicians to come and, you know, give those verbal barbs from the pulpit. Where is the sanctity of the pulpit itself? Where do we question ourselves where this money is coming from in the first place? And why are people giving out such huge chunk of money to churches? Is it a way of actually making sure, because now the lifestyle audits, you know, is being pronounced here and there, they have huge chunks of money in their houses and they don't know what to do with the money, and they have to give away the money. And the church is a good excuse and a conduit of making sure they are actually, you know, fending off all this cash.
Debarl, the noise that is going on right now from my perspective is useful because we are exposing issues that for a long time we've been talking very quietly about. Tom Kagwe is right. This thing is not going to go away by just written words. Written words sound good. But if we take it upon ourselves as an individual and say enough is enough, we're going to get rid this out of our society. And reinforce prosecutors' office. I don't know how many prosecutors we need to hire. If we have to hire 1 million, let's hire 1 million. And then get public auditors out everywhere after these people. And then accept the effective use of whistleblowers everywhere. And expose these people at their root. And then go after them with everything that we have. And like Japan, Basudo, we say this is our pride, this is our country. We're going to take it back, man by man, woman by woman. And if we are serious about that, Debarl, this stuff will be out of our society, will be gone. We used to have a society of a traditional belief in all our ethnic group. It was practice, the children were disciplined, folks focus on the thing. It was done without police running around and everything. And yes, we can do it now because it's being done in Rwanda next door. And we know the Southeast Asia, from Singapore to Japan to South Korea, what they have done about this thing. Yes, we can do it.
Yes, we can do it. But you know, people say that we talk a good game about policies, having or also public auditors that are entrenched in every nook and cranny of this country, come up with a good report and a task force, and of course all that ends just as a good talk. And then we come to a talking show like AM Live, we talk and talk again, and next year I believe we shall be talking even about corruption, and we've been talking about corruption. Sometimes I feel like we are actually just on a cul-de-sac. Right, that we've crossed the Rubicon as far as this country. That we need God to just come with fire and brimstone, right? Himself. Maybe Kenyans needs to hold hands and pray together, right? An inter-religious, you know, sort of a gathering. Yeah, despite the fact of the religion, we cast out this demon.
I told you very well. It must begin from the top. In my 6 years of public service, if Tom Kagwe does not influence who gets the medical cover for 300 staff, I do not influence what is procured as paper or pipes. Who procures offices for those offices which were created, 9 of them? I didn't participate. I oversaw ensuring there is no corruption. But when you begin to get influenced that the medical cover goes to this company and not this one, the offices we open will go to this woman or man and not where the shilling costs the best.
Thank you.
If we want to start corruption, ending corruption in this country, we begin from the very top. Uhuru should look himself in the mirror.
Wow.
And anybody behind him.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, welcome back. You're watching Standing on Guard here on AM Live, where we are concentrating on the state of corruption here in the country and how does it portend to be a national security when you're looking at the whole scope, different facets, of course, of the country where we know people are having clammy fingers in the public coffers and stealing from the public wealth as well. We can see what is on the front page of a Daily Nation today. Big fish, trapped. Educational Principal Secretary and Land Commission Chief might be charged over school land transaction. We're talking about leaders also who are actually in the forefront of, you know, perpetrating corruption in this country. You know, there's a motivational speaker, the Les Brown, that says, you cannot see the picture if you are in the frame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. And maybe Kenyans were not seeing the picture because all of us were in the frame.
Correct.
Right? So how do we get out from the frame?
Not all of us, Tom.
Not all of us.
Not all of us.
Yes.
But most of us.
Yes.
Yeah, might be.
Okay, so not all of you, but you are out of the frame.
We all have the potential.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear. We all have the potential.
Correct.
Remember last week when I was saying that all of us are corrupt? We all have the potential. And I say this because you know somebody, they're a good person, then they get in a position of power or they get in a position of means, and all of a sudden they become somebody else. And that's what I mean when I say the way that corruption fights back is that it further corrupts. And, you know, people don't get reeled into corruption aggressively or by force. You know, it's a game of grooming. It's a seduction game. That's how people get into it. But I want to build on what Tom said earlier about, you know, it's almost like we were having a telepathic conversation. Because in this country, if you ask anybody to answer your question or based on anything, they will say, you know, Kenya, we are a very religious country. You know, as in, I always find there is that imbalance between we are so religious and how we behave. But I think what has happened is that we have confused religion with spirituality. And that is why religion has also become part of our corruption. Can we be honest about that? Yeah. That religion has become part of our corruption. But, you know, if we are to go by what we all know or what we all believe as people who believe there is a higher power, we believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, isn't it?
Yes.
So the idea of being able to use anything on earth to buy your way to heaven, well, that's just total nonsense. Let's just be honest. But there are people who have disconnected from our spiritual essence, which is part of what makes us who we are, and decided that what is here on earth and who they are is the only thing that can control their lives and everybody else's life. So that's a problem right there. So therefore, coming back to shared essence and people looking at themselves in the mirrors, it's not just one person who needs to do that. We all need to do that. because we need to ask ourselves, now that things are this bad, where do we go from here? So I see people looking for a way to become more authentic, for people to find a way to become more authentic, to feel like they are standing on solid ground. Because right now it just feels like we are all in quicksand. Yeah.
Quicksand. Let's hear from Dr. Khannenje, especially when you look at this particular editorial cartoon and what Lucy Mukuria is talking about. Are we also maybe using text from the Bible to sanitize ourselves?
Sure.
Then we're using this particular text, you're taking it out of context and using it as a pretext?
Debarl, it's interesting how we employ the Bible. You know, in this country, God is optional normally, only becomes relevant on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And what we do is, if you've committed horrible crimes, especially comes to theft and corruption, a lot of people tend to think they can sanitize their stolen money by giving some to the church. Now the trouble is, we shouldn't be surprised that a lot of church leaders happily welcome him to their church. In fact, they will ask the congregation to pray for them, to bless them with more. What message are you sending? Someone just knows, I stole this money, could be from NYS, and I'm being prayed, I'm being blessed. Now, I'm not surprised, because if you have to think critically, how many men of God or men of cloth do you know who are actually principled, who are going to say we cannot take corrupt money? For the most part, it's actually because their own churches or wherever religious institutions they had, their business enterprises, they're actually not there for God. And that is why they cannot question. They will tell you, well, who am I to judge? But at the same time, they tell you, if you don't follow a certain message, you may not go to heaven. Until, of course, it comes to free corrupt money. And so our entire moral compass has fallen by the wayside. The values we teach our children. The CS for Education just banned some visitations in some schools for parents. Why? Because you have parents who are so determined to actually take a leakage to their children at school. What message are you sending to them once they graduate? Is the shortcut in life, right? You know, we cannot be practicing the opposite and then expect somehow to get miracles. What we practice is what we're going to get. And a lot of us, either we're actively involved in it or we're passively involved in it by actually not pointing it out. Because if it's your brother grabbing some plot from City Hall, you will not be making a lot of noise. But if someone else, you think that's a problem. No, we have to start holding ourselves accountable first. Now, the president is largely on the right path. But to fight this war is going to be tough. The president did not swear allegiance to his friends when he was sworn in. He swore allegiance to this constitution and the nation of Kenya. And he should stick to this, because he may have to lose some friends in the process of fighting this war.
Right, Erastus Mwencha.
Well, first of all, let's go back to the text that you mentioned, that you are quoting the text inappropriately. But I was trying to think through the Bible to see which text you may refer to. I can't find it. And I've read from Genesis to Revelation.
Which Bible have you read?
King James Version or whatever version.
but that particular headline. But where you say we should actually where the heart is where the treasure is. You've never read that particular verse in the Bible.
On the contrary, if you go to the Bible, actually, the Bible talks of the motives for giving, and if you go through the givings that is in the Bible, there is this poor lady who came and gave very little, and she didn't even want to be seen how much she had given. This huge, rich Pharisee gave a lot of money and walked away very proud. And you remember Jesus saying, it is not how much you give that matters. It is the spirit with which you give. So much as I may not want to condemn anybody who gives money, but to think that you can buy heaven is wrong. It's wrong, and we are teaching wrong value. That yes, you can steal and buy heaven. Let's not teach that kind of doctrine. But having left that, I think what we should be pursuing now is how do we claim back this country.
Yeah.
And as we claim this country, we can focus on, in fact, if you go to the social media now, what has been unleashed is like the bag is out of the bottle. I see all over the place people are saying this MCA earns so much, like the calculation that was there, but owns so much. And I think let's follow these leads so that we can start putting people into account. When we talked about Israel in the text of security, let us be our brother's keeper, not necessarily to secure them in their depth, but also for them to account how they have acquired this. And in that context, what I would suggest, let us now start checking. And anybody who knows where anybody who has stolen, let's mention it. And let's ask police to follow up. And that becomes now a new attitude, that if you steal, you will be named.
Right, thank you. Right, we can close it up and then we'll look at other stories as well. But is it a conversation that we'll have next week? Yeah, we have these particular headlines of that we're not really tired about it.
We cannot be tired.
We have the NOI suspects now, they're actually on bail.
Yeah.
Right? That is a constitutional right, we cannot argue about it. The court has actually given that particular leeway so far. But in terms of going to the full extent on prosecuting these people and them also getting to jail, so that it can be a learning lesson for other Kenyans as well. Are we headed anywhere? Yes, Professor Noah Midamba.
Debarl, whatever we write, whatever we do, it comes down to every single one of us. And it is every single one of us which is going to count. If you are a headmaster, you are responsible for something. If you are a member of parliament, you are responsible for something. If you are a police inspector, you are responsible for something. If you are a vice chancellor, you are responsible for something. So every single person has to take care of their responsibility and stand up to be counted. You cannot look at your side and blame everybody else.
Yes.
All right.
I agree.
Lucy?
For me, I think just to close off on this, I'll say leadership is a value chain.
Yes.
Leadership is a value chain, and therefore, that representation through the entire chain, its essence is through there. Not just the physical things you can hold, but its spirit, its psychology, its is in it. So we must understand that leadership is actually a value chain. And once we understand that, we know that we are all in it. And therefore, nobody can go separate from it. And if anybody does, it interferes with the whole chain. Yeah.
All right, briefly, can we also there is a very interesting editorial cartoon as well. I want us to comment on it. And this is in light of, not really this one, but the one by Stano inside the People Daily today. And the lifestyle audits that they're talking about. We can see here the Auditor General, of course, looking at the payslip of this particular public officer who's earning a gross salary of 40,000, and of course, after the net, or the net pay is 8,000 shillings per month. But looking behind, you have all that word of cash, the choppers, the guzzlers, the good houses as well. Do you think we have, and this maybe I could ask you, Tom Kagwe, there is any legal framework when we're talking about lifestyle audits? Because, as I've mentioned here before, this is not the first time that we have this particular pronouncement. President Uhuru was very honest when he began actually his administration in 2013, that yes, we will have lifestyle audit, people will declare their wealth as well. And all that tapered off along the way, down the tubes so far. People will try and challenge this particular, of course, pronouncement as well. I don't know if there is, from your own perspective, any legal framework around this particular lifestyle audit.
Definitely, Chapter 6 of the Constitution is the beginning of the everything. But if you look at that cartoon, what you're not seeing is the size of the auditor.
The size of the auditor?
That's for me what gets my eye, because essentially in the village I grew up in Eastlands mostly, and but sometimes I would go to Gatondo, where I come from. There was a guy who was called the auditor.
The auditor?
Yes. He was so huge, yeah? So the question was, how did he get that huge? Because when you come to audit people, there are two things which can be done. Either you tell us the truth, or you get a kickback. I'm sure that auditor is not looking really at the payslip. He's looking at the other money and stashed cash which is behind that fellow, so that he knows how much he can cut from there. So let's do it this way. The Constitution, chapter 6, from Article 73 to 77, is clear on how public officers should act. The Leadership and Integrity Act is also crystal clear,
yes,
on what this means. The Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act has clear provisions on the role of public officers and declaration of wealth. Every 2 years, we've made it a ritual every December that public officers should declare their wealth, which means that you say, I own 1 car. Now, after 2 years, you own 2 cars. Your salary and your income is recorded by both the Kenya Revenue Authority Act and also the Public Officers Ethics Act. So these are not pronouncements. These are things which are in legal provisions in the Constitution and in several other legislation. So the President's directive is based on law. And therefore the best thing to do is to gazette it. Further gazette those pronouncements, because what we have a ritual. For example, the last December, I was a state officer. I wrote on my forms, I own 1 car, I own this house on mortgage, it's valued at this much, and nothing has changed in my lifestyle, only to pay the mortgage and to fuel the car. But when you have people who are state officers who do declare, but nobody is following them, what we need to do to end this conversation is to look at those forms and interrogate those forms. How much do you earn in a salary? 700,000. How much do you own? You have 10 houses. Yes. How? Okay. How do you have 10 houses and you earn 700,000?
All right. Okay, maybe in closing also, we have this particular cartoon. If you know about the Sisyphus complex, I think I'll run it by there, because at a later time, because we don't have it from a laptop. As soon as we have it, then we can comment on it. But I think, Noah Midamba, you have to say something briefly.
Debarl, money has become, has taken on its own different meaning from what we were used to. Debarl have been around very wealthy people. I've seen wealthy people. Yeah. I've seen the way they live, and I've seen everything else that one can talk about. I'm running a business university. I'm encouraging students to be innovative, to be creative, so that they can become better. But Debarl, majority of these wealthy people are as miserable as one can get. And I'm not telling anyone, don't make as much money as you can. But work hard. Whatever you get, work hard and work for it. And you cannot go in government service and expect to become rich. And that is what we need to say. The consequences of becoming rich off government, or to make sure that you will not have anything to do with government service the rest of your life, and you serve a life sentence where you belong.
Thank you.